The fluorescent lights of the last stop gas station hummed aggressively against the 2 a.m. silence. The station was an island of harsh, artificial light surrounded by an ocean of dark, flat farmland. For Clara, the night clerk, this hum was often the only sound she'd hear for hours. She was 22, working this job to save for school, and had convinced herself she preferred the isolation. It was predictable. Her routine was simple: brew coffee that no one would drink, restock shelves that no one would shop from, and wait for the occasional trucker to shatter the quiet. Tonight, however, was dead. At 2:17 a.m., a vehicle crunched onto the gravel lot. Clara straightened up, relieved for the distraction. It wasn't a semi-truck. It was an old, dark sedan, its paint dull and oxidized under the lights. It rolled slowly past the front windows and stopped at pump 3, the one furthest from the store's entrance. Clara waited by the register, ready for the ding of the door. But the driver's door didn't open. The car just sat there, idling, its engine a low rumble that she could feel more than hear. She squinted, trying to see the driver through the reflective glare of the windshield. The car's headlights were off, but the interior dome light was on. She could see a man in the driver's seat. He wasn't looking at the pump. He wasn't reaching for a wallet. He was perfectly still, his head turned, staring directly at her through the glass, and he was smiling. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was wide, fixed, and utterly vacant, showing too many teeth. A cold knot formed in Clara's stomach. She'd seen strange travelers before. This was a 24/7 highway stop, after all. But this was different. This felt intentional. She forced herself to look away, busying herself by straightening a display of candy bars, pretending she hadn't noticed. Clara whispered to herself, "He's just tired. Maybe he's waiting for someone." She waited 5 minutes. The car didn't move. The man didn't move. The smile didn't falter. She looked back up, her heart giving a hard thump. He was still staring, that same fixed, unnatural grin. He lifted one hand from the steering wheel, slowly, and gave a small, almost polite wave. Clara didn't wave back. She stepped back from the window, out of the direct line of sight, her fingers brushing against the silent panic button under the counter. She ducked behind the register, her breath catching. The fluorescent hum of the store suddenly felt deafening. She risked a quick look over the counter. The car was still there. The man was still smiling. Clara whispered, "Okay, just brew the coffee. Act normal. He's just a creep. He'll get bored and leave." She busied herself, forcing her hands to stop shaking as she tore open a new filter pack. She kept her back to the window, but she could feel his gaze. It felt like a physical weight, a cold pressure on her spine. Then, the ding of the front door chime shattered the silence. Clara jumped, spinning around. It wasn't the smiling man. It was a trucker, tall and broad, his face weary from the road. He nodded at her. "Ma'am," the trucker said, "just need a coffee. Black." Relief washed over Clara, so potent it made her dizzy. She wasn't alone anymore. Clara's voice was shaky. "Yes, sir. Of course. Just a moment." As she poured the coffee, she glanced nervously back toward pump 3. The dark sedan was still there, idling. But the man was no longer smiling. His face was now pressed close to the driver's side window, his expression one of intense, cold anger. He was glaring at the trucker. The trucker paid, took his coffee, and turned to leave. Clara spoke, her voice low and tense. "Sir, wait." The trucker paused at the door, looking back. Clara said, "That car at pump 3, he's been watching me for 10 minutes. He won't leave. I think he's angry you're here." The trucker's expression hardened. He looked past her, out the window at the dark sedan. He set his coffee down on the counter. "Stay inside," the trucker commanded. "Lock the door behind me." He walked out the front door, letting it slam shut. Clara watched, her heart pounding. The trucker didn't walk to his rig. He walked directly toward the sedan at pump 3. He stopped about 10 feet from the driver's window and yelled something she couldn't hear. The man in the sedan didn't move for a moment. Then, the car's engine revved loudly. The sedan's headlights flashed on, high beams, blindingly bright, aimed directly at the trucker. The trucker raised an arm to shield his eyes. The man in the car revved the engine again, a sharp, aggressive sound that echoed off the flat farmland. Then, without warning, the car lurched forward, tires spitting gravel. Clara screamed, "He's going to hit him!" The trucker dove sideways, rolling just as the sedan sped past the spot where he'd been standing. The car didn't stop. It fishtailed onto the highway and accelerated into the darkness, its red taillights disappearing. The trucker got to his feet, brushing gravel off his jeans. He walked back into the store, his face grim. "You okay, kid?" he asked. "Yeah," Clara said, her voice shaking. I think so. Thank you." He was just staring. "He was more than staring," the trucker said. "When I got close, I saw he had zip ties on his passenger seat, a whole bundle of them." Clara felt the blood drain from her face. The trucker picked up his coffee. "You should call the cops. That wasn't just a creep, that was a problem. You stay safe." He left. Clara locked the door behind him, the click of the deadbolt sounding small and insufficient. The rest of the night was quiet. But the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was empty. Clara finished her shift with her back pressed against the wall, watching the dark highway, flinching at every passing set of headlights. The trucker's words echoed in her head, louder than the fluorescent hum. Zip ties. It wasn't just a creep. It was an abduction that had failed. She drove home at sunrise, her eyes scanning her rearview mirror the entire 25-minute drive. For 2 nights, nothing happened. The shifts were silent, dead, just like before. But the quiet was no longer a comfort. It was a vacuum, waiting for something to rush in. Clara started carrying a can of pepper spray in her pocket, her thumb resting on the cap. On the 3rd night, at 1:30 a.m., a different car pulled in. It wasn't the old sedan. This was a brand new, black SUV with tinted windows, the kind that looked expensive and official. It didn't pull up to a pump. It parked directly in front of the store, in the fire lane, its headlights cutting sharply into the building. Clara squinted against the glare, her hand instinctively moving to the panic button. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was tall, elegantly dressed in a dark business suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked completely out of place in the grimy, rural gas station. She walked toward the door, her heels clicking precisely on the pavement. But she didn't try to open the locked door. She stopped just outside the glass, about 3 feet away, and stood there. Clara whispered, "Can I help you?" The woman didn't respond. She just stared at Clara through the glass. And then, slowly, her lips pulled back into a smile. It was the exact same smile as the man in the sedan. It was wide, fixed, and utterly vacant. A perfect, terrifying imitation that showed too many teeth and held no warmth at all. Clara stumbled back from the register, a small cry escaping her throat. It wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a random creep. This was something else. Something coordinated. The woman in the suit just stood there, smiling that dead, fixed grin. She lifted one hand, slowly, and gave the exact same small, polite wave as the man in the sedan. Clara didn't hesitate. She slammed her hand down on the silent panic button under the counter, her eyes never leaving the woman's face. The button sent a direct, silent signal to the county sheriff's department. The woman just watched her. The smile remained. She didn't react to the alarm. She didn't try the door. She simply held her wave for another 3 seconds, then slowly lowered her hand. She turned, her movements precise and unhurried, and walked back to the black SUV. She got in, the door closing with a soft, expensive thud. The headlights snapped off, plunging the lot back into near darkness. The SUV's engine started, and it pulled away, turning smoothly onto the dark highway, disappearing just as the sedan had. Clara was left shaking, hyperventilating, leaning heavily on the counter. She stayed that way until she saw the flash of red and blue lights approaching. 2 deputies came in. She told them everything. The sedan, the trucker, the zip ties, and now the woman in the suit with the Sam smile. They were more serious this time. They took her statement, looked at the security footage, which clearly showed the SUV and the woman, and promised to patrol the area. One of the deputies sounded somber. "This sounds coordinated, ma'am. We think you did the right thing. Call us if you see anything else." They left. Clara felt a small measure of safety return. It was documented. They were looking for them. She survived the rest of her shift. She quit the next morning. She works in a library now, in the middle of the day, surrounded by people. She hasn't been back to the last stop since. She thought the story was over. Until last night. She was browsing a local news site when she saw a small article, "Highway 12 crash remains unidentified." She clicked it. The article was about a burned-out, dark sedan found crashed in a ravine, discovered 3 days ago, the same day the woman in the suit visited her. The police said the fire was so intense the driver was unidentifiable. But at the bottom of the article was one detail, added by the reporter. A bundle of melted plastic zip ties had been found on the passenger floor. Clara felt a cold, sharp relief. He was gone. The man from the sedan was dead. She closed the laptop, feeling the heavy knot of fear in her stomach finally begin to unwind. It was over. Then, her phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. Her hands shaking, she opened it. It was a single, grainy image, sent without a word. It was a picture of her, taken from a high angle, standing in her new apartment, reading the very news article she had just closed. Her head snapped up. She scanned the corners of her own living room, looking for a camera, for a red light. She saw nothing. Her phone buzzed again. A new text from the same number. "Did you like my smile, Clara?